What's going on, guys? It's Kitten of Doom, and today we're going to be talking all about how to play from behind in SMITE. I'm going to be mostly specifically talking about Conquest, but these tips will also help out in a lot of other game modes as well. When you get behind in Conquest, it almost feels impossible to come back and actually win the game. I know a lot of people struggle with this, so I hope these tips will help your games. Tip number one is to always look at the map. It is important to know where everyone is at all times. Even early game, when you don't have wards, you can generally see where everyone is just from the normal map vision. Always try to see if you can spot the enemy jungler on the map so you know if it's safe to push up your lane a bit or not. This is extremely important because you need to be aware of ganks. Tip number two synergizes with tip one, and it is to buy wards even though you are behind. Wards are extremely important in Conquest because it lets you and your teammates know if they might get ganked, or if the enemy team is trying to do an objective like the Gold Fury, Fire Demon Portal, or Fire Giant. Every role should be buying wards, some roles more than others, but when it gets to mid to late game, you always want to have your team warding and sentry warding the big objectives on the map. Wards also help your solo laners since they can rotate towards teamfights faster since they can teleport to wards. Tip number three is to go for camps instead of kills. When you are behind, it is better just to farm camps and get XP and gold from those instead of risking your own death. Obviously, one of the most important things to do from behind is to not die any more than you have already. When the other team gets a kill, they gain experience and gold, and you lose out on farm because you aren't in lane getting any minion waves or buff camps, while the enemy team is farming all of your buffs. Tip number four also synergizes with tip three, and it is to stop boxing the opponent in your lane. It is more important to just safe farm your minion waves and camps rather than to risk dying from a trade. Doing this, you'll be able to keep up in levels with your opposing laner. The most important thing in playing from behind is to stay alive. You can safe farm from under your tower if you need to. Just try to get the last hits on the minions so you don't lose gold to the tower. Tip number five is a funny one, but it is to know that you're behind. You can figure this out by looking at the team gold at the top of the screen, or by looking at how much more gold your lane opponent has than you. You can also know you're behind from looking at what your opponent is building and noticing that they have more items finished than you do. Another important thing to notice is how far ahead in levels the enemy team is compared to yours. And lastly, obviously, if you have more deaths than your opponent, you are most likely behind. Tip number six is to share camps for experience. Playing from behind can be difficult because you lack experience and gold from being pushed back. It is important to remember to share buff camp XP with your teammates so that they can get some experience as well to try to level up. Try not to do something like four-way split a camp, but always try to share with one or two other teammates. This includes all buff camps and the back and mid harpies. Tip number seven is use the VGS more often. VGS is a great tool that helps you communicate with your teammates. It is important to always call an enemy missing in your lane when you see them start to head towards another lane or if you don't see them at all. You can use your VGS to help group up your team for important objectives. Try to always let your team know when you're leaving a fight if you get low, or just to let them know to retreat out of a bad team fight. Tip number 8 is an easy one, and it is to get defensive relics. This includes things like Aegis, Beads, and Bracer. Obviously, support and solo are going to go for more team-oriented relics, like Shell, Horrific Emblem, Sprint, or even Meditation. But if you are a squishy target, it is important to go something like Beads and Aegis to survive in some team fights. Tip number 9 is to switch around your build. If you are having problems dying a lot, it may be necessary to invest in some defense or even just more utility-related items like Shifter Shield, Ethereal Staff, Gem of Isolation, Void Shield, Gladiator Shield, Runic Shield, Rod of Asclepius, Dynasty Plate Helm, Voidstone, Stone of Foul, Witchblade, Shield of Regrowth, or Mystical Mail. You can also prioritize lifesteal to help you sustain better or cooldown to have your abilities up more often to help you stay alive. Tip number 10 is to not chase kills. It is more important to go for the objective rather than chasing a kill, which will probably end with you dying. Don't waste the time it will take chasing the enemy god, which probably would have gotten away anyway. Chasing kills will put you in bad positions most of the time, and you will most likely run into the rest of their team, which is never good. Kills don't win games, objectives do. Tip number 11 is to play for objectives. Conquest is an objective-based game, so it is important to always contest the Gold Fury, Fire Demon Portal, and Fire Giant. Always have your team ward and sentry ward around these objectives so that you know when the enemy team is trying to kill them. Even from behind, it is better to group up and contest these objectives instead of letting the enemy team have them for free. You might even steal away an objective if you play your cards right. Tip number 12 is to not be scared to ask for help. Feel free to ask nicely for a gank from your jungler, support, or mid laner if you are having trouble and your opponent is far up in your lane. A successful gank will get your opponent behind and will make you a little farther ahead when you farm while they are dead. Finally, tip number 13 is to stick to lanes to farm and potentially split push. This is important for any role, but especially the jungle and support, since they rotate the most. When you are behind, you need to safely farm to get XP from minion waves, so don't feel bad about sticking in the lanes a little more often. Split pushing is almost a must when you are from behind, because you will need to destroy towers to get gold and open up the map more. And that is going to wrap up this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know if this has helped you at all, and feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. I will see you all in my next video. Bye!